Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber for Breakfast. We're now in our 19th episode of 2023. This year is really going by. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast, and our gold sponsor, Gray Bar. A lot is happening in Washington, D.C. There is an House Energy and Commerce hearing today on overseeing federal funds for broadband deployment. And on the Senate Commerce Committee is holding a hearing tomorrow on the state of universal service. And this hearing is going to examine the need for connectivity in rural and insular areas for health professionals and providing telemedicine and telehealth for low-income households that otherwise could not afford internet access, and for access to broadband in our nation's schools and libraries. The hearing is also going to explore potential reforms to ensure its effectiveness in the years to come. Also on Monday, this past Monday, May 8th, a group of congressional Republican leaders sent a letter to the FCC's Office of Inspector General asking that he report to them on the effectiveness on the Affordability Connectivity Program, which is just underway. And I think that's going to be a great program as we start kicking off our BEAD funding. At the Fiber Broadband Association, we are now getting ready for our next Regional Fiber Connect workshop on Tuesday next week, May 16th in Austin, Texas. This is going to be an extremely important event given that Texas will be eligible up to $3 billion in BEAD funding. You're not going to want to miss that. So please register today as the hotel and workshop will be sold out. After Austin, our next Regional Fiber Connect workshop will be in Lake Tahoe, California on June 21st. Not only is this a great educational event, but what better place to be than Squaw Valley in June. So it's going to be awesome. Also, registration opened last week for Fiber Connect 23 in Orlando, August 20th to 23rd. This will be the biggest and best fiber broadband event in the world this year with over 4,000 attendees and an amazing program. The event has sold out the past 2 years, and I anticipate the same this year, so please don't wait to register. Also, you need to book your room at the Gaylord. And yesterday we held a special webinar on improvements to the supply chain. The Fiber Broadband Association Supply Chain Working Group provided an update on what's going on with the fiber industry supply chain. So if you missed that, you can catch the replay on our website under webinars. And then please join us tomorrow, Thursday, May 18th. That's next week. Please join us next week because that's my anniversary. May 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern for our special webinar unveiling our fiber workforce development guidebook. So we just finished this big research project with Cartesian, and we have a guidebook that's going to be really useful for all the states as they put together their workforce development plans for BEADs. So you'll be able to register for that webinar at our website under webinars. And that brings us to today's Fiber for Breakfast session with Trent Edwards, the president of Mears Broadband Division, discuss redefining the meaning of P3, people, partnerships, and preparation. But before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce Trish Healers from team who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thanks, Gary, and good morning to everyone who's joined us today. Before I go over a few logistical items, we'd like to once again thank the platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco, and our gold sponsor, Gray Bar. Now, if everyone would keep in mind that you're in listen mode only, to ask a question, you can type it into the question box on the right side of your screen in the control panel. We'll host a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's webinar. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. You can find the recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. At the conclusion of the presentation, you will be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. If you take a minute to do that, we'd really appreciate your input. I'll pass it back to Gary now to introduce our panelists and get us started. Gary?
Thanks, Trish, and good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the president and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, we heard from J.J. Jones, the Fiber Broadband Association's chairman, and Rich Williams, our conference program director on what fiber will disrupt next. And it was a preview of our upcoming Fiber Connect 23 conference in Orlando, August 20 to 23rd. JJ and Rich walked through what's going to be the biggest and best fiber broadband conference in the world this year. So we look forward to seeing everybody down in Orlando. Today on Fiber for Breakfast, we have the pleasure of hearing from Trent Edwards, the president of Mears Broadband Division, on redefining the meaning of P3, people, partnerships, and preparation. With that, I'd like to welcome Trent Jones. He's the president of Mears Broadband Division. In this role, Trent leads all facets of division, including strategy, sales, and operations. Trent is a telecom industry veteran with nearly 25 years of experience. And prior to joining Mears Broadband, Trent served as the Senior Vice President of U.S. Operations at Letcor Technical Services, and he is Vice President of Operations at Exo Communications. Trent has a diverse experience, which includes leadership and management roles in capital and network planning, engineering, operations, construction, network management, safety, and service delivery. He holds a degree from Nashville Technical Institute, and he lives in Austin, so I know that we'll see Trent next week at our Austin event. But welcome, Trent, and for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and we'll work them into the Q&A. So with that, I'll turn things over to Trent.
Hey, thank you, Gary, and thanks to the entire FBA team, Wesco and Graybar for doing this, and thank you for this opportunity. As I speak today, I wanted to send out a quick poll prior to starting the discussion, so you all should see that. If you would go ahead and place your vote on the poll question. But as I start, this is a very exciting period of great builds coming up, and I am not going to speak from just totally the Mears perspective, but hopefully for all contractors and kind of our involvement in what's taking place. The redefining P3 model is something that we came up with from a Mears standpoint. Obviously, we understand the traditional meaning of P3, a very important component of infrastructure build out, but we thought it was very crucial to talk about these three components as we're in this period of the great build that is coming up, over the next 3 to 5 years. So the first thing in the poll question talked about, what does everybody think as a percentage of the deployment costs are to deploy a fiber to the home network? These are very conservative numbers, but again, what we've seen from, you see that, it's somewhere between 60 to 70% of the cost is the actual construction. When you talk about that, it's very important to look into these three aspects: the people to do all of the work that's coming, the relationship that you as the owner or the individuals as the contractors have to and need to put in place to ensure schedule, to ensure we do not have cost overruns, to meet all of your expectations from a budget standpoint and your deal standpoint. So partnerships. There's a lot of disruption with construction and building, and how do we stay in front of that? And the preparation, which we call the surprises in our world, right? The things that happen out of our control, all the planning goes in that you can possibly do. And there will always be something in the real world that is extremely opposite of what we thought. So being able to have that preparation and go forward. So as what I was thinking about doing is just going through these and talking in a tactical manner of, how we look at this stuff and how it's better to deploy and cooperate together, and absolutely be considered part of the team as we go through and deploy this. So obviously there's a lot of activity coming out, right? So the biggest issue that we face today in this is the people piece. The people piece, here's what I tell people. if somebody tells you they have people today, there's one of two things: they're lying to you, or they're not very good. Let's just be honest, okay? The people piece is an issue, and it's been an issue from a while, from the age of the workforce to the younger generation coming into the workforce, and opportunities to go after that. So, I want to ensure you that there's a lot of preparation going on to address that, and that is recruiting and training are the two components of that I would say are extremely critical. There's many avenues of that. When you speak of recruiting, we've seen, when you talk, from a quantum Mears standpoint, we have, many engagements with, our particular programs, to the Northwest Lineman's College, and then through military programs. But, I would advise folks to really ask those questions around how do you get your people, how do you support, how do you maintain your subcontractor workforce, because the subcontractor workforce is going to be critical for all of this build out. The subcontractor workforce is critical from the standpoint that is the higher majority of workers out there compared to the GCs like we are, but they, in some situations can't manage the commercial requirements like bonding activity and those kind of things. So those relationships between GCs and contractors is extremely important in these larger programs. So depending on the type and scale of your programming, we really need to ensure as you're going into this thinking process and picking your contractor, identifying that, understand that people piece, right? Really understand the approach, timeframes, and how we're doing that in order to support your scale and your expectations of the build. Second is partnership. I submit to everyone that, these partnerships are crucial. And what I would like, there's a lot of scenarios, the traditional approach to a build out where contractors are brought in late in the game through an RFP process because it is the most expensive fee. We don't apologize, that we are a business, we want to make money, but we don't make the money that people think we make. There are very thin margins on our world, and it is extremely important to get contractors involved and engaged earlier historically than what we've done. There's going to be a shortage of contractors, not in the true definition of shortage, but time frames to get it. People are going to start choosing who they want to work with, how the best partners to work with, and how we do that. The benefits of going up front are like the community engagement piece, letting the community, the municipality, the city, understand what's going to take place. There's going to be people out there building. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to impact school zones. It's going to impact traffic. But there's a huge benefit coming from that in the planning around that. The design, the topography, how are you planning on, deploying your network, and how's the best way to do that for resources around that and the approach to do that. Notification, how are we notifying the public when we're coming into their areas and understanding the entire approach. That is huge. And, historically, you get a design, a lot of assumptions are made, having boots on the street, walk these routes, understand what actually can be constructible. You don't want to surprise it, as we talked about earlier, and that leads into the preparation piece, right? So do you want to put up that other poll question now, please?
Here we go. It's up.
Okay. So, this kind of this I kind of answered your question, but this goes into the preparation piece, right? So this is the surprises, the cost overruns, you never want to hear the two words rock adder. Although as a contractor, all of us will take your money, but it's not something that needs to be a surprise around choosing to not understand the geography, the geology that in the area you're building in. It is the locate piece, the permit piece. We're seeing a lot of particularly in these rural areas. We're going into a lot of rural areas where it's single individuals that maintain the plant documentation, individuals that are single individuals running permit offices, single individuals trying to locate all of the material, all of the underground utilities for any type of work, make ready in any type of aerial plant. The loading on poles today, it becomes a scenario where it's huge cost that we're not planning out on pole change outs because you can't add any more to the poles in different scenarios depending on where we're building. We make the mistake as contractors to say it's cheaper in the long run to build underground in a lot of scenarios when we're talking about aerial with all these things. It is absolutely not cheaper, but it costs less in certain scenarios. So it's very important to understand that and the scenario you're building. And you may be an owner that has your own pole line. You may be an owner that has your own right of way, and this may not apply. But when we get into, to the tier 2, tier 3 cities and the rural areas, we're seeing a lot of this take place. So the preparation is key. I'd say, with all of this, the whole pitch is we need to understand the construction and what is actually taking place out there, and be ready for us because we need to be ready for you as we continue to grow into this money releasing and the huge investment that's taking place. I'd close on the ISP and the community partners. This is something that we as a construction company have to engage with. We have to ensure that everybody's aware of what's taking place to help the owner and to help us continue to keep runway in front of us and keep everything on track. But this is a period of great build, and we all should be excited about this. And it's something that, we really want to push out to the industry to let all of us as contractors continue to be involved and help. We're very excited about this and very excited of what the future holds for all of y'all. I finished it in 1 minute less than my time, Gary. I hope that was okay for questions.
No, good stuff. And so please put your questions in the question chat, and I'll get to those. So let's kick off, Trent, with so Mears, you guys, the heavyweights, right? You guys have been around over 50 years. You've been with Quanta, which is the super heavyweight, for over 20 years. Is there a certain size network that your guys are the best fit for? Or you obviously have the breadth to do really large builds, but what if you have a small network? What's your kind of sweet spot for people calling?
I'm asked that question a lot. It's difficult to answer. I'm asked what makes Mears different than the other contractors. That's difficult to answer. Here's how I would answer that, though. We're different because of our people, and when I say the people that we have at Mears, that includes our partners that we work with. And we're different because we like to work with partners that understand how important construction is. If there's small networks, we're a big company. There's overhead involved in that, and there's price implications to that for a smaller build. It may just not work, and we need to be honest about that and move on. Or we could cluster many small projects together, which is beneficial to the owners and beneficial to us. This industry has lacked a little cooperation at time around that, and I would submit to everybody that, you know, it's something when we talk about these rural areas, the clustering approach and those kind of things to bring in, you know, a contractor that can achieve that and then bring the scale to that against, you know, quick timelines would be beneficial.
You know, when you look at these fiber projects, you know, these buildups, they're creating a lot of demand on already a slim existing underground utility workforce. How do you coordinate between the existing underground facility staff, the excavator, the subs, and everything else going on in the project?
Well, a lot of that is just upfront cooperation in the beginning, you know, them understanding what's coming and what you're trying to achieve as far as your footage per day, your production numbers, the customer delivery models. You know, that's huge. And that way we can get, you know, potholing crews out in front 2 or 3 days. We can keep production going. You know, keep the drills running and make that happen. But that is, you know, I'd simplify that into, you know, upfront coordination is huge in that. Otherwise, you know, your locates can't keep up. That impacts permits. You're hitting things, you know, with the age of facilities, marked and unmarked, you know, unintentional always. But it's that coordination is key.
Got a lot of really good questions that have coming in. So one of the questions is, when dealing with the state procurement requirements, how do you bring on a vendor in the planning process without becoming prejudicial in the bidding procurement process?
Well, and I guess they're speaking of the American-made scenario, I'm assuming. You know, it's we are always agnostic as a contractor in our material vendors. A lot of times that is dictated by the customer. A lot of times we have arrangements, we being Quanta and Mears, we have arrangements with multiple partners in different scenarios of materials, whether it be conduit, whether it be fiber, whether it be handholds, splice cases. Pre-buy that, you know, we have the capacity to pre-buy that and have it on hand and have the ability to, you know, like the owners do at times, you know, the big owners, you know who they are. They buy a large amount of fiber and materials and bring out. We have the buying capacity to do that. And, you know, and if it's not a matching scenario through these coordinations and partners, you know, we have the ability through previous arrangements to navigate that and get that.
And also one of the questions came in is, what are you seeing on average on cost savings on aerial versus buried? That must vary pretty widely, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's aerial is cheaper. Like I said, you know, that depends on where you're building.
Cheaper day one, but maybe
yeah.
not long run when you think about wildfires and hurricanes.
Yeah, I mean that's a loaded question. I mean it's substantially cheaper when you look at it binary, black and white, right? But again, as I said earlier, there's been so much activity on the throughout the years, you know, back to, you know, I guess probably since '95, you know, when the CLEX arose, and you know, particularly in the metro areas and suburban areas, not so much in the rural. But you know, where in those scenarios, you know, it will, again, underground is not cheaper, but in those scenarios, it behooves everybody to look at underground to achieve your goals, fast track to your revenue, and not have to go through the delays, the cost overruns, you know, compliant to your unit prices on aerial.
Now, you were saying that people, I mean, one of the Mears differentiations is your people. And I've seen firsthand the, you know, the family oriented business, you know, both at Mears and Quanta, very, very family oriented. But the Lazy Q Ranch, is that, I mean, is it your people are just better trained? Can you talk about how you have the best people?
Yeah, and we're bold about that. You know, I mean, we've invested in the Lazy Q Ranch, and thank you for bringing that up. I had that as in my training, and I was trying to stay on time and went right past it. But yeah, for everybody that doesn't know, you know, we have a couple 1,000-acre ranch in LaGrange, Texas, that is set up for all of our training, all of our disciplines within Quanah. There is many acres dedicated to telecom, live environments where we can train, get our aerial certifications, our underground certifications, our splicing certifications, even, to the drop type activity, R&D with different partners on things. We always welcome that and anything innovative around the industry. But yeah, we have deep relationships with the military. We have the Northwest Lineman's College and Lazy Q Ranch. So, it's complete housing, food 3 meals a day, entertainment at night, laundry rooms, and entertaining at night. It's all clean.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, it's all clean fun, pool tables, shuffleboard, games, that kind of thing. This is, completely live environment, safe environment. 1 week, 2 week, months training that they can stay on site and be dedicated to the training.
Hey, so I got to sneak this question in from my friend Kevin, but it's really hard. I get this asked question a ton as people are trying to plan with inflation. What kind of inflationary factors are you looking at over the next 1 to 3 years? Is it 5% a year, 10% a year? I mean, what should people plan on?
Yeah, I think it's probably somewhere in that 5%.
5%. And is that what you see from last year to this year? Is it about that same?
That's all I checked on. I kind of describe it as the toilet paper effect during COVID, right? There was a huge push. You got to buy all this stuff now. You have to, and we all fell into it. And I don't think it was anybody's fault. It was just we were anxious of what was happening and trying to understand. So I can only assume. I think there is. I think it's fair for me to say that materials are going to be a problem. I don't think it was a problem as fast as we thought. So I don't know if we'll see that in the coming year, but it definitely, 24 and beyond.
What about equipment? I mean, heard a lot of contractors, that trying to find equipment has been really hard.
Yeah, I'm not an equipment guy. When you talk about, the actual network gear, I'm not the expert.
Like, the directional borers and backhoes and,
Yeah. So, when you're talking about that, look, Quanah has the 3rd, 4th largest fleet in the United States of America. We plan ahead on that. Many different divisions within Quanah that we transfer and move equipment around and the ability to buy. That is not an issue for us in the event we need to get equipment.
Another big competitive advantage is you have a big fleet and you have ways to pull that together when you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very, very bullish to say our biggest issue is continuing to develop and recruit people.
Well, Trent, really appreciate taking the time to get together today. Really appreciate what you and Mears are doing to really build out our nation's broadband infrastructure. I mean, we're busy now, but it's going to get real busy here in the next 4 years. So looking forward to just the whole industry, doing what we can to get everybody connected. So thanks again. And I want to thank everybody for joining us and look forward to get back together next Wednesday. And I'll be joining you from Austin. So hopefully I'll see many of you guys down in Austin next week. And I guess Trent lives there. So we should be able to go and sign up for the Lazy Q Ranch and go play pool. All right, we'll
Yeah.
see you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.